what's playing at the high school in your community. School sports. Good for our kids, good for our community. This message presented by the Ohio High School Athletic Association and the Ohio Interscholastic Athletic Administrators Association.
This is Josh Tom of the Cleveland Indians, and you're listening to the Sports Fix.
This is how we do it. This is how we do it. La, 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 la. La, la, la. This is how we do it. La, la, la. This is how we do it.
This is how we do it. Welcome back to the Sports Fix Live. Hour 3 rolling on here as we kick over the clock. J-Rock back with you across the Sports Fix Radio Network with my man, Montel Jordan, doing his thing in the background. Thanks to B.J. Rudell, author of Fantasy Football for Winners. He's with us every Thursday here doing the fantasy football thing. Thanks to Mike Brandenberry as well earlier in Hour 2 who joined us talking Indians and Bro-Hio. And, man, I'm telling you, somebody's going to owe that man something in the front office when they trade Nick Swisher. Anyways, let's shift gears here as we head down the home stretch. My man Eddy Jansen from More Than a Fan Cleveland going to join us here. Talk some Cavs. We opened up the show talking about it. Talked a little Cavs with Kendall Lewis as well. We're going to pick that back up. You guys, keep it rolling. Facebook.com/TheSportsFix. Tweet with us at TheSportsFixCLE. You can email me, TheSportsFix@AOL.com. I'm going to the phones. That's why you can't call, because Eddy Jansen's there, fresh off of a Cavaliers. They fell last night, but it was a good basketball game between two good teams. One team more experienced, been there down the stretch, and they know they don't sweat it, and they came out with the victory last night. But the Cavaliers saw the model of where they want to end up, and it was on full display last night at the Q. Eddy Jansen from More Than a Fan Cleveland talking about it. How you doing, my man?
What's going on, Jerry? Thanks again for having me, bud.
Well, thanks for being here, as always. Good time there. Let me turn you down a little bit. I had you pretty hot there, and pick right up there. I mean, obviously, the end of the journey where you want to end up, if you're the Cavaliers, they needed no further than to look 50 feet across the court to the other sideline and see the end of the journey that they hope to end up at.
Yeah, absolutely, Jerry. And, I mean, there were a lot of reasons that the Cavaliers could have won that game last night. Reason number one, San Antonio was not very deep last night. They had three of their key bench players, Bellinelli, Bonner, and Patty Mills, were all out with injury. So San Antonio only played 9 players last night. They usually don't do that too often. Also just the hype of LeBron getting a chance to beat the Spurs again for the first time since the finals. That was there. And then, you look at the Spurs and what they've done over the years. They don't really care about regular season games. They care about playoff games. So, Cleveland really did have every reason to win this game, but they are going to walk away from this game with San Antonio with a lot to look forward to, a lot of food for thought here as San Antonio want at you, and it clearly had LeBron and company a little frustrated last night, but hopefully they learned something and will be able to move forward with it.
Absolutely, and the learning happens on all sides of this thing, on the court as well as on the sidelines. I kind of mentioned at the beginning when I was kind of summing up things from last night that I think you saw, and hey, this is not, especially with the person on the other sideline, this is not a bad thing at all, but you saw the counter between, speaking of a team that's been there, they're led by a coach who's been there and done that. Coach Pop has seen it all, done it all, and at the end of the game, he's sitting there with a couple of timeouts just in case he needs it, and a veteran squad handling things down the stretch. Meanwhile, David Blatt, some mismanagement, I don't want to say mismanagement, but, some issues with timeouts, little things, the things that you don't hindsight being 2020. You learn how to do them better. You learn how to always keep that bird in the hand so that when you get the rebound with 10 seconds left, you're able to reset and get your guys an opportunity to win the game. But you're seeing it not just there, but with the rotations, with the minutes, all of that. David Blatt, while he may have won 700 plus however many games and been in thousands in his career, he's still learning the NBA level, and that is to be expected. I was talking to some guys last night, some friends of mine about how you can really look and see similar. I know it's easy to keep going back and looking at the Heat and what they did, but with Eric Spoelstra as well, because I reminded people yesterday on the show, remember when they were about a month and a half in on that thing, there was heavy talk that Spo was in over his head and that Pat Riley was going to come down from the Papal Tower and he was going to lead the super team to the championship. But instead, Pat Riley said, hey, man, let him go learn under the fire. And remember, there was the issues with him and LeBron and the bump, and do they like each other? Does LeBron respect him? I think you're seeing a similar process here with all of those players, with David Blatt trying to figure out the NBA game as well as having a star system to deal with too.
Well, Jerry, there are probably 29 other coaches in the NBA that are going to get out-coached by Greg Popovich on a nightly basis.
That's what I'm saying, you know. You don't look at that as a bad thing at all, you know.
No, not at all. So David Blatt, he's in the majority on that one. And, you know, as an athlete, as a coach, as any type of personnel that's going to be around a team, you're going to have to pay your dues in some way, shape, or form. And David Blatt is paying those as of right now. I mean, Cleveland had a rough early schedule with a West Coast trip, and they play San Antonio as early as they've ever played them in the past. So, I mean, we're only 10 games in, 5 wins, 5 losses. You take a look at that and you say, well, where's the panic meter? You know, LeBron has looked much less than sharp in Cavaliers losses. In fact, in the 5 Cavalier wins, he's averaging 33 a game, but only 19 per game is what LeBron is averaging in Cavalier losses. And, you know, last night he picked up his 3rd foul only about 4 minutes into the second quarter, and we saw a totally different LeBron James. But LeBron does not get in foul trouble that often, and I can only imagine to myself how much more aggressive LeBron would have been had he not picked up that 3rd foul early. He only had 4 points in its entirety in the second half, and that's a rarity from a superstar like James. And really the only thing that we can do is put all of the blame on David Blatt. I mean, he said it before the game last night. He's the coach. He has to carry the burden of the blame. That's just part of his job. So, given it time, they'll figure it out. David Blatt will learn to manage LeBron's minutes a little bit more, and hopefully, Jerry, not give Joe Harris almost 27 minutes and all 12 minutes in the fourth quarter, too.
Well, he played the final almost 18 minutes straight through of the game. I believe it was 17 and a half minutes or so. And I like some of what Harris brings, but what he doesn't bring is on the defensive side of the ball. We saw that the one bucket that ended up being the difference in the game at the end, wide open on a missed rotation. They went right after Harris. He was just no defense to be found. I mean, how do you get an easy layup that easy with 10 seconds or whatever it was to go in the game there? That definitely should not have happened. And so in defense, Kendall and I were talking about it at the beginning of the show. That's where this team will eventually learn that everything focuses off of. In Miami, that's what those guys did. Those guys played defense first. Everything else came off of that. They were aggressive in the passing lanes. They trapped because once they got to know each other, then they could trap, and then they know the rotations would be sound behind them. Right now, the rare times that they do try to trap or double team, the rotations aren't there. Guys end up wide open. Guys end up open under the basket like we saw last night. Veteran team like the Spurs, they know where each other, and that's what you and I can say it, Eddie, all we want. It's not when you say being comfortable, it's not just knowing that Kyrie likes to get the ball on the right side and LeBron likes to get the ball at the top of the key. But that's not it. It's knowing with your eyes closed and a blindfold on that if I pass the ball to the right corner, I just know that that's where Kevin Love is. And in this situation, I can turn around and know that LeBron's a million times. We know where each other is on the court. San Antonio, it doesn't matter what you do, execute it right. They're going to execute the play because they know where they are. In a blindfold, they know where the open. That's just time. It's going to take them time to learn that about each other. And then once they do, he said last night, he said, I'm glad we played them now because when these guys do figure it out, watch out because they're going to be 3 times better than they were.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And, I mean, all of those plays that's offensively at the Cavaliers, with Tim Duncan, Parker, Ginobili, et cetera, those guys have done that a million times over in their sleep.
Right.
Most of which comes with the same players on the floor, and that's where the level of comfortability comes. And right now, the Cavaliers do not have that comfortability offensively or defensively, but it is going to come with time. It's not going to come today. It's not going to come tomorrow. They're going to have to wait until at least 25, maybe 30 games in to try to develop that comfortableness with each other. Going back to the whole Miami Heat thing, they trapped and double-teamed and just harassed the ball as well as anyone. And, that takes time. I mean, they really didn't do that as well in their first year, but by the time you got to year 2 or year 3, defensively they pressured so well that it suffocated a lot of the weaker offensive teams. So, I mean, Popovich is a smart guy, and he knows that, give it time, and the Cavaliers will get there defensively. They probably have a lot farther to go defensively and offensively, but it will come in due time.
Absolutely. Eddy Jansen from More Than a Fan Cleveland here, beat writer for the Cavs, joining us to talk. And as you mentioned, Cavaliers now through 10 games, had the West Coast trip. I like the breakdown of the first 10 games as far as you had a couple of different sets of circumstances that you need to. You need to go through it all, and you had going out west early on. You had some tough games, and you've got some quality victories over good teams. You've got some bad losses against bad teams. You've got, a little bit of everything here. You had a bit of a winning streak, a couple of, 2-game bumps, but now you look at the next stretch of games coming up here, even if you just look through the next 6 games, 5 of which are at home. You've got some young, hungry teams, and you've got some teams that you should be able to go out there and work on that chemistry against. You've got Washington twice, home and away here coming up. Toronto, and Orlando, Indiana, and Milwaukee all in that next 2-week slate of games. So the group of teams that you play changes, and the focus continues, though. But with 5 in a row at home, and it makes 8 out of 9, that's got to help as well. You're able to get in a few more practices. You're able to work on a few more things here. But, yeah, I'm really looking forward to those couple with Washington and Toronto. Both of those teams, 2 of the younger Eastern Conference teams that when we were talking about the Chicagos and, the teams that are going to be at the top was like, hey, both of these teams are like the Cavs. They're trying to say, watch out for us. We're coming up there. I mean, we see what Toronto's done early on.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And Jerry, I think that the key is when you're facing 2 teams like Washington and Toronto, I think the common theme is that a lot of people think they're going to be the 3rd and 4th seed, respectively, so more and more challenges come in the Cavaliers' way. But when you look at those 2 teams, I mean, you mentioned it, they are young and they're athletic, and I think that is going to test David Blatt the most, because they're going to have to play a full 48-minute game against some of the younger teams, with motors and with a fresh set of legs. Looking ahead to those games, David Blatt is going to have to, find a way to get LeBron a blow here and there, because he just can't continue to play 40 minutes a night, the way that he has, not against your DeMar DeRozans and your John Walls and your Bradley Beals and the younger guys who physically can be able to handle that at that point in their career.
I gotta be honest, we diverge on that one. I've talked about it before on the show. Jeff Van Gundy last night, he was getting on that, and I'm like, preach Jeff Van Gundy, because this whole not playing too many minutes things drives me crazy, because 40 minutes a night. I know people get mad when you go Michael Jordan when you're talking about LeBron or whatever, but back in the day, guys didn't want less minutes. They wanted more minutes. They wanted to play all 48. They wanted Michael Jordan get mad you try to take him out of a basketball game. I'm just saying that drives me crazy. I disagree with the sentence you just said. You can't.
Well, it should drive
play
you
LeBron 40 minutes.
Yeah, well, yeah.
A night
I mean, it should drive you crazy, because he's a basketball player.
Well,
he should, want to be out with his his team.
Exactly. You know, like you should, a 30-year-old man who is one of the most elite athletes in the world should be able to play 40 minutes a night, 82 games a year. I'm sorry. Like, to me, we're not asking too much out of the guy. Now, I'm not asking him to play all 48. I'm not asking you to go out there